At 81 years old, Sam Elliott walked into a room full of cameras, journalists, and flashing lights, and did the one thing no one ever expected from him. He broke. Not the dramatic Hollywood kind of breaking. Not tears on cue or a rehearsed confession timed for a press tour. This was something quieter, something that hit harder because of that. His voice, that voice, the one that had carried entire films, the one that had become one of the most recognizable sounds in American cinema, faltered. Just slightly. Just enough. And in that moment, the man the world thought they knew completely disappeared. Because the Sam Elliott everyone believed in, the unshakable cowboy, the stoic Western legend, the guy who always rides off without looking back, was looking back. All the way back. Across decades. Across doubt and distance and the kind of love most people never find, and some never admit to. What came out of him that day wasn't a career highlight or a polished soundbite. It was a confession. A real one. The kind that cost something to say out loud. And the moment it left his lips, the room went completely still. But to understand why this moment shook people the way it did, you have to go back to the beginning. To a kid from Oregon with no connections, no money, and no business dreaming the way he was dreaming. Samuel Pack Elliott was not handed a single thing. Born in Sacramento in 1944 and raised in Portland, Oregon, Sam grew up in a world that had nothing to do with Hollywood. His father managed wildlife for the government. His mother taught physical education. They were hard, disciplined, quietly proud people, and Sam was built from the same material. But from somewhere deep inside that practical, working-class upbringing, a dream took root that didn't make any logical sense. He wanted to act. He wanted to perform. He wanted to be in the stories that moved people. Nobody in his world told him that was a good idea. He studied at Clark College in Washington, then made the kind of decision that terrifies most people and defines a few. He dropped out, packed his life into a bag, and drove to Los Angeles. What waited for him there wasn't a red carpet. It was silence. Rejection. Years of auditions that went nowhere. Odd jobs to pay the rent. Construction work when the acting work dried up. A city that didn't care how much he wanted it. But Sam Elliott was not the kind of man who walks away. Slowly, painfully slowly, television roles started to come. A Western here. A guest appearance there. Nothing that lit the world on fire, but enough to keep him in the game. And then something started happening in the late 1970s that no casting director fully planned for. Audiences started responding to him. Not because he looked like a movie star. But because he didn't look manufactured. He looked real. Like a man who had actually worked, suffered, and earned something. In a business full of polished surfaces, Sam Elliott felt like stone. And that authenticity became the thing that set him apart from everyone else. By the time Mask came out in 1985, followed by Roadhouse, Tombstone, and eventually his Oscar-nominated turn in A Star Is Born decades later, Sam Elliott had quietly become a legend. Not through scandal or spectacle. Through sheer, stubborn persistence. His personal life looked just as solid as his career. He married actress Catherine Ross in 1984. They had a daughter together. They lived privately, away from the tabloids and the noise. From the outside, it looked like the perfect story. But no story is ever as clean as it looks from the outside. And the story Sam had never told, was the one that changed everything. The first time he met Catherine Ross, it was 1978. They were cast together in a horror thriller called The Legacy, filmed in England. She was already a legend. Golden from The Graduate and Butch Cassidy and The Sundance. And from the moment they met on that set, something happened to him that he didn't have a word for yet. But here's what most people never knew. Sam and Catherine did not simply fall in love and move forward. What actually unfolded between them was a slow, aching, stop-and-start story that took years to resolve, and almost didn't resolve at all. Because Catherine Ross, during those years, was living through her own storms. She had been married 4 times before Sam. 4 times. She had loved people who couldn't hold it together. She had opened herself up and been left standing in the wreckage. By the time Sam came along, she had built walls. Not out of coldness, but out of survival. And Sam saw all of it. He saw her strength and her guardedness. He saw what the wrong people had cost her. And instead of walking away or pressing harder, he simply stayed. He showed up without asking for anything in return. He made sure she was okay without making it about himself. People around them could see it. The way he watched her. The quiet care behind everything he did. But what nobody knew was what Sam was carrying underneath all that patience. He was carrying doubt. Deep, suffocating doubt. The fear that a slow-building, blue-collar actor from Oregon with no famous family and no early stardom wasn't enough for a woman like Catherine Ross. The fear that the moment he said what he actually felt, she would look at him and see exactly what he feared he was. And that fear nearly swallowed him whole. There is a version of this story where Sam Elliott never says a word. Where he stays in the comfortable shadow of friendship, watches Catherine move on with someone else, and carries that love quietly to his grave. He was close to that version. Dangerously close. But something shifted. He has said, in his most unguarded moments, that getting to yes, to commitment, to actually stepping forward, required him to face parts of himself he had spent years carefully avoiding. The insecurity buried under the strong exterior. The longing buried under the professional mask. And that's when things took a completely unexpected turn. Because the struggle wasn't just happening inside Sam's head. The world around them was working against them too. Hollywood in the late 1970s and early 1980s was brutal territory for real relationships. The industry was built on ambition and ego and the constant temptation to become someone unrecognizable. Staying grounded in that environment didn't happen by accident. It required a choice, made over and over again. And winning Catherine's trust in that environment wasn't a single dramatic moment. No grand gesture. No moonlit confession that changed everything overnight. It was quieter than that. And harder. It was being the one person in her life who didn't eventually leave, or disappoint, or transform into someone she didn't recognize. It was showing up again and again without asking for credit. Without needing her to say thank you. Without expecting anything in return. And slowly, something changed in her. But just when it seemed like the hardest part was behind them, the real test was still coming. In 2018, something happened that nobody expected. Sam Elliott. 74 years old, decades into a career that had never quite received the recognition it deserved, stepped onto the screen in A Star Is Born and delivered something extraordinary. He played Bobby Maine, a man of buried grief and quiet wisdom, and the world stopped and stared. His first Academy Award nomination arrived like a long-overdue correction from the universe. And in the front row on the night the world began to take notice, was Catherine. People who were there said Sam looked stunned. Not by the recognition itself, but by the moment. By the weight of everything that moment contained. The years of rejection. The years of doubt. The years of quietly loving a woman he wasn't sure he was good enough for. All of it pressing against him at once. He cried backstage. Privately. He's talked about it since, carefully, the way he talks about everything that matters. And what came out in that surge of emotion wasn't just gratitude for a long career finally being seen. It was something older and deeper than that. Something that went straight back to Catherine. To the years he almost didn't get through. To the life he almost didn't have the courage to choose. He told a journalist something that stopped people cold. He said that everything. Every role, every year of patience, every audition that led nowhere, felt connected to her. That she had been, without always knowing it, the reason he kept going when the industry kept pushing him back. That she wasn't just his wife. She was his why. For a man of Sam Elliott's generation, raised on stoicism, on the idea that real men keep these things locked away, on a culture that punished emotional honesty, saying that out loud was not a small thing. It was everything. Catherine, throughout their marriage, had stayed famously private. She stepped back from the spotlight in ways that confused Hollywood for years. A woman with her talent and legacy simply choosing a quieter life. Some people called it a retreat. Some called it a waste. But those who knew them saw the real truth. They saw a woman who had finally found what she had spent decades searching for. Not just love, but peace. The kind that comes from being beside someone who is exactly who they say they are. Consistent. Safe. Real. Sam has said that Catherine is the most honest person he has ever known. That what you see is genuinely what is there. And that in a business built entirely on performance, that honesty was the most breathtaking thing about her. Their daughter Cleo Rose Elliott has described a home built not on Hollywood mythology, but on actual respect. On two people who chose each other every single day. Not out of habit or obligation. But out of genuine, deliberate love. And yet, Sam has also been honest about the parts that weren't easy. There were hard years. Adjustment. The friction of two strong people learning how to share a life. The weight of raising a child inside an industry that offers no mercy. Moments where the love was tested in real, serious ways. But the truth Sam has landed on, at 81, looking back across all of it, is that the love story was never interrupted by the hard years. The hard years were the love story. Sam Elliott and Catherine Ross have been married for over 40 years now. In an industry where marriages collapse in months, that number feels almost impossible. And Sam seems acutely aware of how close it came to never happening at all. How many moments of silence, fear, or self-doubt could have sent the whole story in a different direction? He has become, in these later years, something that surprises people who only know his image. Openly grateful. Gently tender. A man who uses that famous voice not to project strength, but to say, plainly and without apology, that he is lucky. Lucky to have stayed. Lucky to have spoken. Lucky to still be standing beside the person who made all of it mean something. There is something quietly heroic in that. Not the Hollywood version of heroic. The real version. The one that doesn't come with applause or a close-up. The one that just requires you to show up, stay honest, face your own fear, and choose someone, again and again, even when it's difficult. Sam Elliott did that. For over 4 decades. And somehow, after everything, after all the films and all the fame and all the years of building a legend, that is the most remarkable thing he has ever done. So what do you think about Sam Elliott's story? Is this the kind of love most people are too afraid to fight for, or too proud to admit they need? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear your perspective. If this story moved you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And subscribe, because the most powerful stories in Hollywood are never the ones that make the front page. They're the ones like this.